"Do you think you deserve this money? This inheritance now belongs to Emma, your sister. She's better than you'll ever be," were the words my stepmother spoke over the phone, piercing me like a dagger. I gripped the edge of the hotel room table, trying to calm my racing heart. The voice was filled with satisfaction with the inheritance left to me by my mother. "My name is Sarah Wright. I'm 28 years old, and I thought I had finally escaped the toxic atmosphere of family relations. I work in biotech consulting, which requires me to travel across the country most of the week. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday in New York, preparing for a client meeting the next day, but instead, I listened as my father's new wife gloated about claiming my inheritance. "Thanks for letting me know," I replied calmly. My voice didn't betray the fury raging inside. I could almost see Nancy's smug expression falter at my restrained response. She expected tears, pleas, or anger, anything but this quiet acceptance. "Is that all you have to say?" she insisted, clearly disappointed by my reaction. "Emma needs this money for college and a startup, while you'll just waste it on your meaningless career in consulting." Emma, who never got a higher education due to the instability created by Nancy, now planned to go to college and start her own business. I remembered my mother, Linda, who died when I was 16. She built a successful business from scratch and left me this capital so I could follow my dreams. Dreams that Nancy, who married my father David just 4 years after my mother's death, tried to seize from the beginning. "Is there anything else?" I asked in a calm tone. The silence on the other end was telling. Nancy didn't know that a few months ago I had spoken with Mr. Brown, my mother's old attorney. He had warned me of suspicious inquiries. Together, we fortified the legal protection that would make any unauthorized access impossible and actionable. I ended the call and looked out the hotel window at the city skyline. My hands shook, but not from fear. Everything was documented. Every call, every attempt, every manipulation. Nancy had finally outplayed herself, and I was ready. After the call, I couldn't focus on preparing for the next day's presentation. My thoughts returned to my stepmother's words, to her constant attempts to belittle my achievements and elevate Emma, to how she slowly pushed me away from my father, playing on his guilt and grief. I opened my laptop and reviewed the latest documents. Irrefutable evidence. Screenshots of emails where Nancy pretended to be me, fake bank requests, attempts to forge my dad's signature on money transfer documents. All this time she thought she was playing a clever game, but in reality, she was digging her own grave. Closing my eyes, I squeezed the small key-shaped pendant my mom had given me before she died. "This key opens all doors, Sarah," she had said back then. I thought it was just a sentimental phrase, but now I understood its true meaning. My mom gave me not just a material inheritance, but her insight, her ability to see through people. Life after my father met a new woman felt like walking through a minefield. My mother died of heart disease when I was 16. My father seemed desperately trying to rebuild our family. He married Nancy just 4 years later. Nancy brought with her a daughter, Emma, who was 17 at the time. The tension was immediate and suffocating. My mom built her biotech consulting business from scratch, working tirelessly to secure my future. The inheritance she left me was more than just money. It was her legacy, her way to protect me even after she was gone. But my stepmother saw it differently. For her, it was an unfair advantage I had over her daughter. "Your mom wouldn't want you to be so selfish," she would say, trying to guilt me into sharing the inheritance. "We are one family now." But we weren't a family, not in the way that mattered. While my father struggled with his grief, Nancy methodically pushed me to the sidelines. Emma became the star of our home. Every achievement of hers, even the smallest, was celebrated lavishly. Meanwhile, my academic scholarships and business school admissions went virtually unnoticed. My stepmother ensured that David only saw what she wanted. I remember coming home after a successful job interview for an internship at a major company. Mom would have been thrilled. She always emphasized the importance of early experience in our field. However, when I entered the house, I heard excited voices from the living room. Emma had landed a role in a school play, and Nancy had organized an impromptu celebration. Dad ordered her favorite cake and bought a bouquet of flowers. When I shared my news, my stepmother simply remarked, "How nice," and returned to praising her daughter. I caught a fleeting moment of realization, but it quickly vanished under her influence. The real moment of awakening came at my master's graduation. I had received a grant for research work, all while working part-time. Dad couldn't attend because there was an important concert. "She needs her father right now," Nancy insisted. That's when I realized nothing would change until I took matters into my own hands. The next day, I moved out and focused on building my career. The inheritance remained untouched. Not because I didn't need it, but because accessing it would mean constant interference. Each time I visited Los Angeles to see my father, Nancy would comment on my privileged position, on how my stepsister had to struggle without the same advantages. "Your sister has to earn a living while you're jet-setting on a corporate card," she said once at a family dinner, ignoring the fact that I had earned everything myself. Dad usually remained silent during these attacks, avoiding conflict at all costs. After his first wife's death, he seemed to have lost part of his backbone, allowing Nancy to shape his reality. Whenever I tried to talk to him alone, there was always a reason to postpone. Urgent matters, fatigue, an inappropriate moment. The years went by, and the gap between us widened. 6 months ago, when Mr. Brown called and warned me about Nancy's inquiries, everything fell into place. She had been playing a long game, waiting for the right moment to strike. The attorney showed me copies of letters she sent to the bank, pretending to be either my financial advisor or an authorized representative. She even tried to find out if it was possible to change the beneficiary of the inheritance, claiming it was necessary. But I was no longer that vulnerable 16-year-old girl. I was my mother's daughter and had learned from the best how to protect what was rightfully mine. Now Nancy had crossed the line, and I was ready to end this. With evidence in hand and the support she underestimated, I prepared to overcome the shadow she cast on the memory of my beloved mother. That night, sitting in the hotel room, I took out the little picture I always carried. In it, my mom smiled confidently, the kind of woman I always strived to be. I dialed Mr. Brown's number. My fingers were steady despite the anger still simmering in me. He answered after the second ring, and his voice was familiar. "Nancy finally made her move," I said, getting straight to the point. "She claims she transferred everything to Emma." "I've been expecting this," he replied. "This morning, we received a notification about an attempted account access. Don't worry, Sarah. The additional security measures we set up worked exactly as planned. Every attempt was recorded and documented." Exhaling, not realizing I'd been holding my breath, I understood. Nothing had been transferred. "Not a single penny," he confirmed, "but we caught her red-handed in the act of fraud. The documents are airtight. Would you like me to proceed with the next steps?" "Yes," I said firmly. "It's time to put an end to this. Send the evidence to the family lawyer and copy my father. I want him to see what his wife tried to do." "Consider it done," said the lawyer. "And Sarah, your mom would be proud of you. She always said you were smarter than anyone could imagine." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and booked an earlier flight home. The client meeting would have to wait. I had family matters to handle, and this time I would keep everything under control. Taking the phone, I did something I had put off for too long. I called David directly, bypassing Nancy's ability to intercept the conversation. "Sarah?" The surprise in his voice was evident. "Is something wrong?" "We need to talk," I said, striving to keep calm. "It concerns Nancy and my inheritance. I'm flying in tomorrow morning." The silence on the other end was tense. "Did she do something?" he finally asked. "Yes," I replied. "And I have proof. I want you to see it yourself, not hear her version." I heard a hint of concern in his voice that I hadn't noticed in a long time. A glimpse of the father I knew before my mother's illness. "I'll be waiting for you at home." In his voice, there was worry, but also something else, as if he had long suspected the truth but feared to admit it. I landed in Los Angeles the next morning. I had called ahead to notify them of my arrival, but I didn't mention my stepmother's call. Some conversations had to happen face to face. I found them all in the living room: David, Nancy, and Emma. Nancy's smug expression faltered when she saw me enter. "Sarah," my father began, looking concerned. "I wasn't expecting you so early. Is everything okay?" "Actually, Dad, we need to talk." I took out the phone and file Mr. Brown had sent me yesterday. Nancy called and said she emptied my inheritance and transferred it all to Emma. "I thought you should see what really happened." My stepmother's face turned pale. "I was just trying to help Emma, not—" My voice was firm. "Every attempt you made to access the account is documented. Every call, every forged signature, it's all here." I handed David the folder. His hands trembled as he read through the documents, his expression growing darker with each page. "Nancy, what have you done?" My father's voice was barely audible. "She's lying," Emma interjected, her face flushed. "She's always been jealous of me." I showed the complete inheritance account statement. The money was still there, safe and untouched. Nancy's attempts to transfer it had failed because I had been warned about her plans months ago and had taken precautions. "You set me up," Nancy exclaimed. "No," I replied calmly, clutching the pendant key in my pocket. "I protected what was mine, just as my mom taught me." The silence in the room was deafening as David read through every document, every letter Nancy sent to the bank, every attempt to forge a signature, every calculated step to steal my inheritance. It was all there, in black and white. "I did it for our family," Nancy protested, but her voice wavered. "Emma needed—" "Enough!" David's voice cracked. "Just enough. Nancy, these documents— You tried to forge my signature. You lied to the bank. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a pain I hadn't seen since Linda's death. "Sarah, I had no idea." "Of course you didn't," I said softly. She made sure of that. I laid out all the evidence, everything in chronological order, showing years of Nancy's attempts to undermine our relationship while trying to get hold of my inheritance. The final document showed her failed attempt to transfer the money and subsequent angry calls to the bank. The file even included a letter Nancy sent to the financial institution, claiming Linda had left verbal instructions that funds should be directed to Emma, but the signature below was a skillful forgery of David's, confirming that lie. That's when the bank contacted Mr. Brown, who immediately raised the alarm. David closed the folder and looked at Nancy with a gaze full of disappointment and anger. "These funds were never intended for Emma," he said quietly. "How could you even think you had the right to this inheritance?" Nancy lifted her chin, the last traces of pretense gone. You never noticed, did you? How she always got the best, even after her beloved mommy died. A graduate scholarship with a grant, a brilliant career, and this fund waiting for her. And what did Emma get? Nothing. I just wanted to level the playing field. I saw my father recoil inside at her words. He was seeing the true face of the woman he'd lived with for the past 10 years. Level the playing field through deceit? He asked. Through forging my signature? Emma has no rightful claim to Linda's estate. Sarah is Linda's daughter, and it's her rightful inheritance. Emma rose, her eyes filled with tears. You promised I would get a chance to start my business like Sarah had, she told her mother. Everyone's gaze turned to Emma at that moment. I understood she too had been a pawn in Nancy's game, perhaps not fully aware of the scale of the deceit. This is ridiculous, Emma erupted, her face burning red. Mom just wanted to make it fair. Sarah got everything handed to her. I turned to my stepsister, feeling a mix of pity and exasperation. Handed to me? I worked, built a career from scratch, and never touched this capital. Linda left it to me so I'd have opportunities like her, but Nancy couldn't stand that. Could she? My stepmother's composure finally cracked. You ungrateful little... I've already filed a report, I interrupted. The bank has all the proof of the fraud attempt. Mr. Brown is handling everything. I turned to my father. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, but you needed to know the truth. How long has this been going on? He asked quietly, addressing me but not taking his eyes off Nancy. From the very beginning, I replied. It started small, comments, minor attempts to turn you against me. Then it escalated. 3 years ago, Nancy first tried to find out if the bank could change the beneficiary of the inheritance. David closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When he opened them, there was a determination I hadn't seen in years. Nancy, I want you out of this house. What? Her voice rose to a shrill pitch. You can't be serious. After everything I've done for this family? Done for this family? My father's voice was quiet but firm. You tried to steal from my daughter, forged my signature, lied to me for years. Emma started to cry, but these weren't her usual fake tears. She seemed genuinely shaken, perhaps finally grasping the seriousness of her mother's actions. I didn't know she was forging signatures, Emma said to me pleadingly. I swear, I thought the money could be redistributed legally. She said large estates were often revised for the family's benefit over time. Stop lying, Emma, Nancy snapped. Then turning to David, her voice softened once more. Honey, I just wanted both girls to have equal opportunities. Isn't that what Linda would have wanted? I felt anger boiling inside me at the mention of my mother's name. Don't you dare speak about what my mom would have wanted, I said. Linda knew the value of hard work and merit. She wouldn't have left money to someone she'd never met at the expense of her own daughter. David nodded, eyes filled with pain and regret. Sarah's right. Linda created this inheritance for her daughter to continue her legacy, to use her name to justify deceit. He shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. The police will want to talk to you, I told Nancy. Mr. Brown has already filed charges. The bank's fraud department is also involved. You planned this, hissed my stepmother. You knew I'd try to access the capital. No, Nancy, I replied calmly. You planned it all. I just made sure I was ready when you did. I turned to my father. There's more. Mr. Brown found evidence that she's been withdrawing money from your account in small amounts. By taking out $100 or less at a time, there were no alerts sent to your phone, and you don't pay much attention to the accounting. I handed him another document, a list of transactions from David's personal account. Systematically small withdrawals that would not have caught attention on their own, but cumulatively amounted to a significant sum. David sank back into his chair, looking defeated. I felt for him, sorry for the pain he felt, but he needed to know the truth. "Leave," he repeated to Nancy. "Both of you. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce." Emma stood, her hands trembling. "Dad, please. I didn't know everything," I thought. "Even if you didn't know about the document forgery," David said, weariness in his voice, "you knew the money wasn't yours, that it belonged to Sarah, yet you were willing to take it. Wouldn't you do the same thing for your child?" Nancy asked quietly, trying one last time to pull emotional strings. "I would never betray Linda's memory by stealing from her daughter," David said firmly. "And true love for a child doesn't teach them to take what isn't theirs." While Emma packed her things, hurling accusations and apologies in equal measure, I stood calmly by the window, the same window where I used to wait for my mom to come home from work. I could almost hear her voice. "Always be prepared, dear, and never let anyone take what rightfully belongs to you." David approached and awkwardly placed a hand on my shoulder. "I should have seen, should have protected you." "We were both blind in our own ways," I replied. "You in your desire to create a new family, me in my fear of losing what little I had left of the old one." He nodded, eyes moist with tears. "Your mother would be proud of you today. You've inherited her strength and insight." He paused. "And her capacity to forgive. I hope you'll be able to forgive me one day." "We both need time," I said, watching Nancy drag her suitcase to the door, not even offering a single farewell word. Nancy confessed her guilt, avoiding prison but receiving a fine and a ban on working in finance. Mr. Brown proved to be not only an adept lawyer, but a steadfast ally, guiding me through every legal twist and turn. "Linda made wise connections," he said once. "She knew someone would eventually challenge her decisions." Nancy tried to play the victim, claiming she only wanted to level the playing field between me and Emma, but the judge was unimpressed, especially when evidence of systematic financial manipulations on David's personal account was presented. 2 weeks after the hearings began, I received a letter from Emma. "Sarah, I know nothing can justify my role in all this. The truth is, I didn't understand the full extent of my mom's actions. She had been telling me for years that Linda was unfair, leaving everything to you, that your mom deprived me of opportunities she gave you. I believed her because it was easier to think my mom was right than to acknowledge she envied someone else's success. But after seeing the documents, I can't justify it. I really did plan for college and a startup, but honestly, I didn't know about the signatures being forged. Mom said there was a legal way to change the distribution of funds, especially if David agreed. Forgive me if you can. Not for Mom, for myself, for not seeing beyond my nose and letting her turn me against you all these years. Emma." I wasn't sure if I wholly believed her, but I saw genuine remorse. Perhaps Emma was a victim too, a victim of her mother's envy. I chose to respond, but later, when emotions settled a bit. David became a different man after Nancy left, as if a veil had lifted from his eyes and he saw how much time had been wasted. He insisted I stay with him for a while in the old house as we mended our relationship. "So much time has passed, and I don't even know what kind of coffee you drink in the morning," he said one day. And we did catch up. We sat in the living room and talked about Mom, my career, his regrets, and the future. I told him about my dream to start my own consulting company, just like Linda did once. "Why haven't you started yet?" he asked. I shrugged. "Fear," Probably. Insecurity. It was always easier to work for someone else. Dad looked at me for a long moment. You know, your mom was afraid too when she started. She spent nights making business plans, but always postponed the launch another month. What changed? I asked. You. He smiled. When she found out she was pregnant with you, she decided she wanted to show her daughter an example of courage. She launched the company the day after she found out. Mr. Brown came by the next day, bringing a folder of papers. He had prepared the dossier expecting such developments. Sarah, I found something in Linda's archives that might interest you, he said, handing me the folder. Inside was a detailed business plan for her last project before her illness, a plan to build a company from scratch to pass on to me when I was ready. On the last page was a note in her handwriting for Sarah, when the time comes. Don't be afraid to start small. Every great thing started as a small dream. I believe in you more than you can imagine. With love, Mom. I couldn't hold back the tears reading those lines. Linda believed in me even then, knowing she might not see me grow up. She left me not just money, but a roadmap, a plan, faith. She was an amazing woman, your mom, Mr. Brown said. She always knew you'd follow in her footsteps when you were ready. With these documents Nancy had so desperately tried to obtain, I finally found the courage to follow my dream. I founded my own consulting firm in the biotech sector, using the business plan as a foundation and adapting it to modern realities. The first months were tough. Clients didn't line up as I naively hoped, but I was persistent. I found in myself the same determination that reminded me of my mom, the same drive, the same resolve to prove myself. David supported me every step of the way. He came to my tiny office, bringing lunch and sharing his business experience. Sometimes he would just sit in the corner with a book while I worked late, a quiet presence reminding me that I was no longer alone. Gradually, business picked up. My first major client came thanks to a colleague of Linda's who remembered her as a brilliant consultant. If you're even half as talented as your mother, he said, I know my project is in good hands. I put my heart and soul into the work, and the results exceeded the client's expectations. Soon, other contracts followed, and within 6 months, my small firm began to grow steadily. Around this time, I finally responded to Emma. I couldn't fully forgive her, but I offered to help with her college applications, not with money, but with consultation and recommendations. To my surprise, she accepted the offer with gratitude. I want to prove that I can achieve everything on my own, she wrote, without my mom's schemes or anyone else's money. It was a small step towards potential reconciliation. Not immediately, but over time, we might find some semblance of a relationship based on mutual respect. You know what I regret the most? My father asked one evening as we sorted through old photo albums. What? Allowing Nancy to almost erase Linda from our home. When we got married, your mother's photos gradually disappeared from the walls, and her name stopped being mentioned at dinner. I thought it was the right thing to do. I could have been more persistent too, could have fought to preserve her memory. That evening, we decided it was time to bring Mom's pictures back into our home. Not as a ghost from the past, but as a constant reminder of who we were and who we could become. Did you like the story? Write your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next interesting story. See you tomorrow.